Every generation is told the same story. Work hard, earn more, build wealth. Your parents believed it. Your grandparents lived it. And you? You're working harder than both of them combined. Yet somehow, you're falling behind. Two incomes can barely afford what one income bought 50 years ago. Raises that look impressive on paper evaporate before they hit your bank account. And no matter how much your salary increases, the gap between what you earn and what you need keeps widening. This isn't bad luck. This isn't because you're not working hard enough. This is the result of a financial trap set in motion over 50 years ago. A trap that severed the link between your labor and your wealth. And if you don't understand how it was built, you'll spend your entire life running on a treadmill that was designed to keep you exactly where you are. The trap has a name, a date, and a deliberate architect. On August 15, 1971, President Richard Nixon walked into the White House press room and announced that the United States would no longer convert dollars into gold. He called it a temporary measure to protect American workers from international speculators. He promised it would stabilize the economy, and the public, trusting their government, believed him. But what Nixon really did that day was cut the last thread connecting money to anything real. For decades, the dollar had been anchored to gold, a system called Bretton Woods, established after World War II. Under that system, foreign governments could exchange dollars for gold at a fixed rate of $35 per ounce. It wasn't perfect, but it imposed discipline. Governments couldn't print unlimited money because they had to back it with something tangible. The moment Nixon closed the gold window, that discipline vanished. Money became whatever the government said it was, and your salary, your savings, your future, all of it became untethered from reality. At first, nothing seemed to change. People went to work. Paychecks arrived. Prices crept up, but slowly. The trap was invisible because it took years to spring. But if you look at the data, the break is unmistakable. From 1948 to 1971, worker productivity and wages moved together. When American workers produced more, they earned more. The economy grew, and the benefits were shared. A single income could buy a house, raise a family, save for retirement, and still have something left over. That wasn't because people worked harder back then, it was because the system hadn't been rigged yet. But after 1971, the line split. Productivity kept climbing. Workers kept producing more value, becoming more efficient, generating more wealth. But wages flatlined. The wealth was still being created. It just stopped reaching the people who created it. Let's make this concrete. In 1970, the median household income in the United States was about $9,000. A new home cost around $23,000. That means the average family could buy a house for roughly 2.5 times their annual income. Today, median household income is around $75,000, but the median home price is over $400,000. That's more than 5 times annual income. You're working just as hard, if not harder, yet housing, the single largest expense for most families, has doubled in relative cost. And it's not just housing. College tuition, healthcare, childcare, every major expense has outpaced wage growth by orders of magnitude. Your grandparents didn't have 2 incomes because they didn't need 2 incomes. You need 2 because the system was redesigned to extract more from you while giving less back. So what changed in 1971? Why did wages stop tracking productivity? The answer is inflation, but not the inflation you see in headlines. This is structural inflation, baked into the system the moment money stopped being real. When currencies were tied to gold, governments couldn't print endlessly without consequences. Print too much, and foreign governments would demand gold, draining reserves and exposing the fraud. That fear kept spending in check. But once Nixon severed the link, the floodgates opened. Governments could now print money to fund wars, bailouts, and deficits without immediate punishment, and every new dollar printed diluted the value of every dollar you earned. This wasn't a bug. This was the feature. Inflation became the silent tax that let governments spend without admitting they were taxing you. Here's how the trap works in practice. Let's say you get a 3% raise this year. You feel good. your salary went up. But if inflation that year is 5%, you didn't get richer. You got poorer. Your nominal salary increased, but your real purchasing power declined. You can buy less with your higher paycheck than you could with your old one. And this happens year after year, compounding quietly in the background. Over a decade, a 3% annual raise with 5% annual inflation means you're earning 30% more in numbers, but have 20% less in actual buying power. The trap is that the number on your paycheck keeps going up, so it feels like progress, but the cost of living rises faster, and you fall further behind without ever realizing why. That's the genius of the system. It looks like you're climbing when you're actually sinking. But the elites, the ones who own assets, who hold stocks, real estate, and businesses, they don't suffer this trap. In fact, they benefit from it. Because when governments print money, it doesn't flow evenly through the economy. It enters through the financial system first. Bank reserves, bond purchases, corporate loans. Asset prices inflate before wages do. Stock markets surge. Real estate appreciates. The wealthy who own these assets see their net worth skyrocket. By the time the new money trickles down to wages and consumer prices, the inflation is already baked in. You get the raise after the cost of living has already risen. They get the asset appreciation before you even notice prices went up. This is called the Cantillon effect, named after an 18th century economist who observed that the closer you are to the source of new money, the more you benefit. Since 1971, this effect has been the engine of wealth inequality. It's not that the rich work harder, it's that they're closer to the money printer. Now let's go back further in history to see how this pattern repeats. Ancient Rome faced the exact same problem. In the 3rd century after Christ, Roman emperors needed money to pay soldiers, defend borders, and fund the bureaucracy. But tax revenues couldn't keep pace, so they debased the denarius, the silver coin that was the backbone of the Roman economy. Under Emperor Augustus, the denarius was 95% pure silver. By the time of Emperor Gallienus in the mid-3rd century, it contained less than 5% silver. The coins looked the same. They bore the emperor's face, carried official weight, but they were hollow, and everyone knew it. Merchants stopped accepting them. Soldiers demanded payment in gold or goods. Inflation raged. A measure of wheat that once cost a single denarius suddenly cost dozens. The Roman Empire didn't collapse because of barbarians alone. It collapsed because its money became worthless, and with it, the economy that sustained the legions, the trade, and the trust that held the empire together. Sound familiar? Because the mechanism is identical. Rome debased metal coins. Modern governments debase paper currency. The method changes, but the result is always the same. Those holding money lose wealth. Those holding real assets survive. Roman elites bought land, gold, anything tangible. They understood that when currency fails, only real value endures. Ordinary Romans, holding their debased coins, saw their savings turn to dust. Just like today, the trap wasn't visible until it was too late. The coins looked real. The promises sounded sincere. But trust, once broken, cannot be restored by decree. And once the currency collapsed, so did everything built on top of it. Let's jump to another example. Weimar Germany in the early 1920s. After World War I, Germany was saddled with crushing reparations under the Treaty of Versailles. The government needed money it didn't have, so it printed marks by the trillions. At first, workers cheered. Wages went up every week, sometimes every day. People walked around with pockets full of cash, but they weren't getting richer. They were watching their money die in real time. By 1923, hyperinflation had reached catastrophic levels. A loaf of bread that cost 250 marks in January 1923 cost 200 billion marks by November. Workers demanded to be paid twice a day, so they could spend their wages before they became worthless. Families used stacks of currency as wallpaper because it was cheaper than buying actual wallpaper. Life savings, pensions, bonds, everything denominated in marks evaporated. And who survived? Those who owned land, factories, foreign currency, or goods. The middle class was annihilated, and that economic despair became the fuel for political extremism. The Weimar collapse wasn't just an economic disaster, it was a societal fracture that set the stage for the horrors that followed. The lesson is brutal and timeless. When money is unanchored, wages become meaningless. You can earn 1,000,000 marks, 1,000,000,000 marks, but if those marks can't buy bread, you have nothing. That's the trap. Nominal numbers go up, real value goes down, and by the time you realize what's happening, it's too late to escape. Now, the United States hasn't experienced Weimar-level hyperinflation, but the mechanism is the same, just slower and more controlled. It's inflation by degrees, stretched over decades instead of months. The frog doesn't jump out of the pot because the water heats gradually. And that's exactly how the system is designed. Let's return to 1971 and trace what happened next. In the 1970s, after Nixon's decision, inflation exploded. Oil shocks, supply disruptions, and monetary expansion combined into what economists called stagflation. Rising prices with stagnant growth. Workers saw their paychecks buy less every year. By 1980, inflation had hit double digits. Paul Volcker, then chairman of the Federal Reserve, crushed it by raising interest rates to nearly 20%, triggering a brutal recession. Unemployment soared, but inflation was tamed. Yet the underlying structure never changed. The dollar remained fiat currency, backed by nothing but trust. And once that door was opened, it could never fully close. Every subsequent crisis, the dot-com bubble, the 2008 financial collapse, the COVID pandemic, was met with the same solution: print more money. Each time, asset prices inflated. Each time, wages lagged. Each time, the gap widened. Look at the 2008 financial crisis. Banks made reckless bets, bundled toxic mortgages, and nearly destroyed the global economy. The government's response? Bail them out. The Federal Reserve created trillions of dollars through quantitative easing, buying bonds and propping up financial markets. Stock markets recovered within months. Housing prices eventually surged past pre-crash levels. But wages, they barely budged. Millions of workers lost jobs, homes, and savings. Meanwhile, those holding assets, stocks, real estate, businesses, came out richer than before. The lesson was clear. The system protects wealth, not workers. Your labor creates value, but the system is designed to funnel that value upward. Then came 2020 and the COVID pandemic. Governments around the world shut down economies and responded by printing money on a scale never before seen. In the United States alone, the money supply increased by over 25% in a single year. Trillions in stimulus, relief programs, corporate bailouts. And what happened? Inflation returned with a vengeance. Housing prices exploded. Used cars became luxury items. Groceries that used to cost $100 suddenly cost $130, then $150. Wages went up too, but not nearly enough. A 5% raise when inflation is 8% means you lost 3% in real terms. Once again, those holding assets, stocks, real estate, commodities gained wealth. Those living paycheck to paycheck fell further behind. The pandemic didn't create this trap. It simply revealed how deeply embedded it is. So here's the question you need to ask yourself. If productivity has doubled since 1971, if workers are creating more value than ever before, where is that wealth going? The answer is simple and infuriating. It's going to asset holders. It's going to shareholders. It's going to those close to the financial system who benefit from money creation before you even see a dime. The system is designed so that labor is devalued and capital is rewarded. Your salary is always chasing inflation, never catching it, because inflation is the mechanism that transfers your wealth to those who don't need to work for it. This is the 50-year trap. You work harder. You earn more on paper, but you can afford less in reality. And every year, the treadmill speeds up just a little more. What can you do about it? The harsh truth is that you cannot escape the trap by working harder within the system. If wages lag inflation by design, then earning a higher salary won't solve the problem. It will just put you on a higher rung of the same treadmill. The only protection is understanding what money really is and where real wealth actually lies. Real wealth is not in currency, it's in assets that hold value when currency does not. It's in skills that cannot be devalued by a printing press. It's in knowledge that lets you see through the illusions before they trap you. History shows that those who survive currency collapses are never the ones holding paper promises. They're the ones holding land, businesses, commodities, or skills that remain valuable no matter what happens to money. That's not a call to panic. It's a call to awareness. If you understand the trap, you can navigate it. If you don't, you'll spend your life wondering why you can't get ahead no matter how hard you try. The 50-year trap is not an accident. It's not bad policy. It's the system functioning exactly as designed. From the moment Nixon severed money from gold, the game changed. Wages were locked into a race they could never win, and wealth was redirected upward through inflation, asset appreciation, and financial manipulation. Every promise of prosperity, every raise, every promotion, they're all running on a treadmill powered by a machine you were never meant to see. But now you do. And that awareness is the first step toward financial freedom. Not the freedom the system sells you, the freedom of a bigger salary or a nicer title. Real freedom. The freedom that comes from recognizing that the rules were rigged, the trap was set, and the only way out is to stop playing the game by their rules. History doesn't repeat, but if you ignore it, it will crush you all the same. The Roman workers holding debased denarii, the German families watching their marks turn to ash, the modern employee watching their paycheck lose value year after year, they're all victims of the same trap, just dressed in different currencies. The pattern is always the same. The only question is whether you see it in time. If this gave you a new perspective, hit subscribe. History has the answers, and here at TimeLocked Finance, we'll show you where to look.